Here we go. Good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Campus Co-working Space. My name is Wayne Gerard. I'm Queensland's Chief Entrepreneur. It is super great to be here with you today. I want to shout out to Joy, David and Ange for putting on today's event, and to my amazing team at the Office of the Chief Entrepreneur, Sarah, Sandy and Heather, for all the coordination they've done. Can we just give them all a big clap, please? Right, can we swing that camera around so we can have a look at all the amazing people we've got here? Because that would be awesome. Right. So everyone wave quick. Keep going. Keep going. Great work. Right. I'd like to take a moment to, I'm going to have to sit down. Sorry. And I'll try not to move them. I am in the front. Right? I want to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands that we're gathered on here, and if anyone's online, the lands that we're gathered on. It's one of the best parts of my gig as Chief Entrepreneur to do this. Why is it important to me? It's important to me because I genuinely do feel a connection to our land. Like I genuinely care about our environment. And I care about protecting and sustaining our environment for our kids and our kids' kids and so on and so forth. And I look back at the traditional owners of the lands that we're on, and I think about them as the custodians, the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the problem solvers, the people that had to learn all the hard lessons. And it's in their footsteps that we walk, I guess, as business owners. It's in their steps that, imagine what it was like for them. They literally had to work every day out themselves. And for us as business owners, we're on that journey too. Right? So I take a great amount of pride in acknowledging the traditional owners. I take a great amount of solace in the fact that people have walked a lot harder path than we're ever walk. Right? And that kind of gives me confidence to strive forward and make a difference. So yeah, I hope you also take the time to acknowledge the traditional owners. It's great to be here in Toowoomba. It's been a couple of years probably since I've been here speaking. Yeah, wow. Yeah. So back when the innovation ecosystem was brand new, right? So when Queensland really started to think about innovation as an important part of its economy in 2011, 2012. And what happened was there was a whole bunch of serendipitous events that occurred that ultimately created places like Campus Co-working, right? Ultimately, they gave the confidence to these guys to go, hey, we want to participate. And so back in the early days, I'd founded my company Red Eye in 2012. I had an engineering company in 2011. Well, I was doing engineering, had an engineering company, and we found a problem that we wanted to solve. Couldn't find a solution, decided to solve it by building a technology solution. And we started to do that in 2012. And so we hired some software engineers, and at the same time, Steve Baxter had just moved back from the US and had started River City Labs. And at the same time, there were a couple of accelerator programs being run by the universities, QUT and UQ specifically. And so a small group of us, like 5 or 6 of us, got together. I was I was probably the only founder in the group. There were a couple of people from universities, Steve, and that was probably it right in the beginning, right? 4 or 5 people. And that group grew from 2012 to 2014 to about 12 people. The Queensland government actually came to us in about 2014 and said, hey, we hear that you guys are getting together pretty regularly to try and build this innovation ecosystem. Can we participate? And we said, yeah, absolutely. And what happened was we started to just go out
And there was all this momentum in all these different towns and cities. The entrepreneurs were starting to pop up everywhere. Tech entrepreneurs predominantly back then, right? Because there was a lot of hype about Silicon Valley. And so people would start connecting on social media, or we'd get introduced to people at little events that we'd hold. And we just start traveling. And so between 2014 and 2017 or 18, I pretty much just, whenever someone said to me, hey, Wayne, would you come up and share your story? I'd jump on a plane and go, or drive and go. And so I came up here to Toowoomba. I flew to Cairns a couple of times, Townsville a couple of times, Mackay, the Gold Coast, the Sunshine Coast, just sharing my lessons learned, right? Because I was really one of the first tech founders in Queensland. I went to Silicon Valley the first time was, I think it was roughly August 2013. And I flew over to Silicon Valley and I hired a car, my co-founder and I, and our objective was to go and knock on every VC's door and raise venture capital. There was no one in Queensland that I could ask how to do that back then. No one had done it. And so I flew over there, drove down to Apple on the Sunday afternoon, had a look around, got really excited, drove up Sandhill Road, which is where all the venture capital firms are. And then on Monday, I had a meeting with Austrade. And the guy who's the trade commissioner for Australia, based in San Fran at the time, said, so what's your plan? And we said, oh, well, we're here to raise venture capital. And he goes, great, where's your pitch deck? And I went, what's that? Right. And, I didn't even know what I didn't know back in 2013. And since then, I've gone on to raise $30 odd million. We just closed a $16 million round like a couple of weeks ago. We now employ 90 staff. We have 8 people in the US. We have a couple of people in New Zealand. We have a couple of people in the Philippines, but most everyone else is here in Queensland. All our software engineering is done here. We've recruited over 40 people directly from school or university and given them their first job consciously, by choice, right? We've cross-trained and reskilled and brought people from stacks of other industries into the tech industry that knew nothing about tech, right? To build our ecosystem, right? We've invested millions of dollars over that period in training people how to do the different kinds of roles in tech, right? Because there was no tech ecosystem. There were no product managers. There were no UX designers. There were no customer success people. There were no software testers. There was none of that here, right? Literally, our first customer was BHP. And when we won BHP, I had 2 full-time software engineers, 1 part-time software engineer, and 1 part-time dog mascot, right? Literally, we were that small. And we won the biggest mining company in the world as our first client. And today, our clients we have about 45 really large clients, and we manage all their engineering information, right? It's really exciting to know that you can see a problem and you can go on a journey to solve that problem. And by doing that, you can have an impact on the economy. You can have an impact on people's lives. You can create jobs, right? You can create stability in family unions. You can give people skills and the capability to go off and start their own business. We've now had over 8 companies sprung out of people that got a go at Redeye. Came into Redeye either as their first job or as an early job or their first job in tech, learned some stuff, stayed for a couple of years, went out and started their own company. If I was to map the ecosystem that Redeye's created, it'd probably be a couple of hundred people, maybe 300 or 400 people that have now got jobs in Queensland because I decided to solve a problem that I saw sitting on a coal mine in North Queensland, right? And that's pretty cool, right? It's pretty cool to think about it. I've got kids, two boys, right? And, for me, I also, I spent 10 years in the army as an army officer. I was away all the time. I never really got to watch them grow up. And today they work in my business, right? I still don't see them very much, right? Because they do their thing and I do mine. But the point is that I've been able to positively make an impact on people's lives. And that's what inspires me. That's my why as chief entrepreneur. Yeah. So I'm really here today to talk to you about the impact you can have, to encourage you to dream big, and then to put that dream into motion, because a lot of people talk. Talking does not positively impact the economy. Talking does not positively impact the environment. Talking doesn't give you extra money in your back pocket every week or every month, you know, or allow you to buy the dream car, house, farm, caravan, go on the holiday, whatever is important to you, put your kids through school, whatever is important to you, right? So you got to do something. And I think it's the doing something, the risk taking part of being an entrepreneur that's most often the area that's so grey and unsure and uncertain. And what do I do next? I like that analogy. Who's seen that, analogy of the car driving down the road at nighttime and the headlights illuminating a certain section of the road? But off in the distance, you can see the town. Yeah. Being an entrepreneur is like driving a car at night. Often, all you really have line of sight to is what your headlights can see. You got to know where you're going, which town you want to get to, but you don't have to have it all figured out before you start. And so many people I see want to have it all figured out before they start. So I encourage you to get comfortable with uncertainty. Get comfortable not knowing everything before you start. I'm now 10 years into my journey at Redeye, and I still only run my business in 6-month sprints. What does that mean? I only have line of sight to what's happening in 6 months, in the next 6 months. I don't exactly know what it's going to look like in 12 months or 18 months or 24 months or 36 months. I know where I'm going. I know which town I'm heading to. But the reality is that stuff's going to unfold as I go on the journey. And the more I do now, the better the chances are that it'll unfold the way I want it to as I progress on the journey. Does that kind of make sense? Right? And so I look at you and I look at us as an economy, Toowoomba. I spent 6 years here. So I moved here in 1995. I was in the army and got posted out to Borneo Barracks. Funny story, I'll tell it very quickly. I got posted to Borneo Barracks. I was a young officer, my last year as a lieutenant, about to get promoted to captain. And I was like, I just don't want to live in the officers' mess anymore, right? I'd had enough of living in the boys' club, right? And I was like, okay, I'm going to go find somewhere to live in Toowoomba. Well, in 1995, there was no social media, right? So I picked up the paper and I looked for shared ads for accommodation in Toowoomba. There were 2, like literally 2 people that had shared ads up. And so I went and met those 2 people, and I'm married to one of them now. So there you go. So there you go. So I've got a long affinity with Toowoomba. My wife's family grew up here. My wife grew up here. My wife's family are out at Highfields. So yeah, I feel like I'm absolutely grateful to be back here. So today we're going to have a conversation with some amazing people about building social capital. We're going to start by going, what does that mean, guys? What does social capital mean? So we've got Lisa, Brendan, and Kat, coming up. And you guys are going to, okay. I'm 3, so I've got to sit here. You're number 4. Lisa's 4. Well, you're there, Lisa, aren't you? Yeah. Your number. Yeah.
That's on, isn't it? Yep.
We on?
Do we have a light? Should there be a light?
Should it be on? I think so.
Is that on or is that on?
You're the social media tech person, right?
I'm not good with hardware. Don't give me anything hardware related. Software, yes.
Awesome.
Okay,
Alrighty. We're good.
we're good.
Very good. All right. So thanks everyone for coming, and thanks Lane for coming back and visiting us. And thank you to all of our panelists for joining us. We'll really quickly, in like 30 seconds or less, like 2 sentences, who you are and what you do. So Lisa.
Hello, I'm Lisa. So I do graphic and web design as my main business, but I have been recently appointed as business digital advisor for a federally funded program through Business Station. So I'm helping small businesses learn new digital skills and digital marketing skills. So for $44, you get 7 hours of support in that program. So come and heaps of access to workshops, hundreds of workshops. So it's run through Queensland, WA and Northern Territory. So for a business in any of those states, you can sign up.
Thank you. Why don't we just heard from
That's right.
you? Brendan?
Hi, I'm Brendan Golby. I run a series of business networking events, mainly here in Toowoomba, but have just finished a big road trip around Australia with a whole heap of other events around the place. My claim to fame locally is I built one of the big LinkedIn groups, and I'm the owner of one of the co-directors of toowoomba.com.au.
Thanks, Brendan.
Very cool.
I'm Kat. I'm a local photographer with a passion to make you hungry through food photography. I also tell visual stories about people. So that's my gift about drawing out what your why is and what lights you up. And I actually show that through my photography. I'm also a member of the Food and Agri Network Advisory Group. So that is my passion, is to make sure that our producers and our foodies are actually well connected.
Thank you. And thanks all for agreeing to come and join us today. Now, social capital is our topic, and building social capital. And the reason why I chose this topic, it wasn't on our list of suggested topics, it was just a topic that I wanted to talk about, was the fact that I think for many of us here in the room, we're probably actually reasonably good at building our social capital, for the simple fact that you're already here. But what I want us to think about and talk about today and encourage other people to do is build their own. Those who aren't here, the ones who aren't in the room, aren't part of this conversation, how can we encourage them to do that? So actively thinking about how we do it ourselves and hearing from people that I know do it really well, and we could have had, perhaps 20 people in the panel, but the stage is pretty small, so we've got a few. I want to share some ideas around how that happens, but what it is, and trying to be a little bit more intentional about how we can help other people build theirs, but also how we utilise our social capital. So what is social capital? So pretty much it's who you know. Okay, so financial capital is generally what you have. So you might have resources or money or investment or whatever it might be. Human capital is usually considered of what you know. So you might have a degree in something, or you might have lived experience in something. But social capital comes down to who you know. And it goes beyond just the people maybe that you've met before, but who's in your community. So generally when we think social, we're social perhaps with our family, and whether we like them or not, they're there, and we tend to love them. But in our community, we have both known and unknown social networks. So you might know everyone in this room, or you might not, but they're now part of your social network because you've attended the same event and you're in the same sphere, but you might not actually know someone here. Then we can go beyond the sort of unknown general person in your community to someone who might be a peer or a colleague, someone that you might sort of work with or interact with, a little bit beyond just someone you pass by. Then we go to someone that you have, I guess, a more close relationship, working relationship with, and that you might consider them to be a colleague that you interact with on a regular basis. And then we go to friends. So these might be people you work with, but they might not be. They might just be people that you know from other places, but they're a friend. You know them quite well, and they're a different level of, I'm going to say, acquaintance than someone that you might know by name, but you don't really feel that comfortable with them. So when we're thinking about our social capital, we want to think about the different levels of people that we have in our network and in our life, but also who are they and what do they know, or what do they have maybe that you don't have, that you can access via them. And that's where we start to leverage the capital that we have. So we have some formal things. So things like Chamber of Commerce, Zonta clubs, even campus co-working, membership, if you come along to things, can be a more formal structure. But there's a whole lot of informal stuff that happens. And now that we have online, we could be part of communities of people with similar hobbies or interests online on the other side of the world that you've never met in person and probably are never likely to. But you can build a really good relationship with those people and really strong friendships with those people. You don't have to have necessarily met them in person. So our scope of being able to interact socially has obviously expanded in the last few years. But the question is, when you need to know something or you need to access something, and Google can't help you, who do you ask? How do you ask them? And how do you decide that they're actually the right person to ask? So what I want to get to is how you all do that. So how you, when you meet someone, how you get to know them a little bit more, and then how you remember that they're the person that you would ask that question of. And then how do you, whether it's courage or brashness or whatever it might be, go to them later on and ask them to help you. Okay, so this is the sort of conversation I want to have. So I've got a lot of how questions, and for some of you, you might have seen that I did, like in the last 10 minutes, maybe send you an email with some questions that I'm going to post to you, but maybe not. But you're here because I know that you just live it and you know. So Brendan, I'm going to start with a question for you. I want to know why you put time and effort into bringing the business community together. So what was the purpose and the value of you spending your time and energy to do that when you started it in the beginning?
Yeah, so my story started in 2013, and at the time it was a time where I was like, oh, what are my options for networking? What are my options for getting out and meeting more and more people? And at the time there was a couple of options available, but the options that I had, I was just meeting the same people. So back then I basically set up a LinkedIn group, business. It was called Toowoomba Queensland Community, and I had 500 connections on LinkedIn at the time, and I just invited them all the Toowoomba people straight to that group. And then at the end of that month, I was 200 people in there, and I was like, hey, does anyone want to have coffee with me on Friday? And 30 people turned up, and I'm like, that's kind of cool. The following month, we had about 400 people in the group, and I said, hey, who wants to have coffee with me this Friday? And then 60 people turned up. And I was like, okay, so there's a thirst for people wanting to connect and meet new people. And, there was a certain level of craziness. Like if you were looking for a commercial gain on something like that, I was looking in way the wrong spot. But it was just something that I felt this was cool. And, I'm getting to meet all these amazing people. And, the third month we couldn't find a coffee shop big enough for like 120 people, but we ended up having a random conversation with a guy, and I said, hey, this is my problem. Who would you go and talk to? And he pointed me in the direction of the general manager of the Burke and Wills Hotel locally. I said, I'm looking for somewhere to have coffee for 130 people. And he fell over laughing. But at the same time, he said, you know what, I'll just give you a room. Everyone just buys their own drinks, and I'll put on some catering. We had 130 people turn up. So that was the migration of it. And it, we continued up to 400 people was the biggest event that I've done in that sort of same format. So I guess to a certain degree, what drove me to do it, I think to a certain degree, I was just really, really enjoying meeting all these great people and, the conversations that you have with these people. But even though commercially there was no return for me in that whole period doing it, what was happening was I was getting introduced to all these people that I actually did have commercial relationships with, but it was not related to, the actual event, but it was the conversation. Oh, I'll introduce you to Brendan, or, you're moving to Toowoomba, you need to talk to Brendan. And my LinkedIn profile went from 500 people to, 10,000 people within 2 years. And that was the catalyst for that. And then, it just started snowballing into all these other opportunities, the opportunity to buy toowoomba.com.au, the opportunity to, basically create some, pretty crazy events at the same time. So, so that was sort of, I guess, my version of the value of social capital.
Yeah, Awesome. Thanks, Brendan. Kat, obviously we know that you're a very social person, very friendly, but how have you leveraged the community that you have around you to start and grow your business, both in person and your online communities?
I think just being able to listen in any conversation whenever I go networking, even before I started the business and left the corporate world, it was so important for me to get out and network and start to build those relationships, because I knew in small business you needed to actually create that network to be able to, I couldn't do this whole business on my own. I needed to know, you know, marketing people. And I think I met up with you quite early on and said, I need this, who do I go to? And I think you hit me up with 3 people, just go talk to them. I'm like, okay, fine, off I go. You know, so it's also putting trust in that community about, and going with your gut. Quite often is about your gut. You get a good feeling when you go, yeah, he's a good egg, I'll listen to what he says. And you go with that, and you go and then talk to those people, which then builds up that trust again, that because he's given me good leads, right? So therefore next time I'll come back again. Thanks, Brendan, for that. So it's about building up your currency, your social currency, and you don't use that to as a selfish thing. It needs to be a win-win situation. And so if whenever I meet with someone, if something's come out of it, well, I make sure that person knows, because it makes Brendan feel good that he's actually helped me. And you go, oh, cool. You know, so it's building up our currency. It's filling our cups that we often need as humans to make us feel that we're helping others. So in community-wise, especially during COVID, I found that's when I leveraged the community. When we're all working so much, I was feeling so hard for our hospitality people. How can we bring us all together to make sure we stay strong and we don't lose faith in that? Yeah, it's a hard time at the moment, but we can get there. How do we do that? So we actually start to build those conversations, and just by having connection with humans, and whether it is on Zoom, it's still tell their story and be heard. They just feel valued, and that is what I love, is actually giving value to each individual people in the community. And when we all have our voices and we lift our vibration, that's a bit of work, but when we all lift our vibration, we are so passionate together and we just know it's going to work. So yeah.
Cool. And I'm going to ask a question, because, you know, people out there will have an opportunity to ask questions as well. But did you ever find that anyone that you were, say, suggested to go talk to, like, shut the door in your face and said, no, I'm not going to talk to you? Like, did that happen? If Brendan said, you know, go talk to these people, that they wouldn't?
No.
No.
You know, in all fairness, there are some times when the other person is not ready to receive or to give, and that's okay. But none of them have ever gone, I don't want to talk to you. Go away. Like, who are you? They felt honoured that, oh, Brendan recommended me. Oh, that must mean Brendan sees value in what I have to say. Oh, okay. So it's sort of a key, it's a bit of a first step. So you know how we all have trust. You have to build up that trust. You sort of get past that you get to second base pretty quickly. So, you know.
That's right. There's an implied trust.
Yeah, there's an implied trust.
Yep, cool. Excellent. Thanks, Kat. Wayne, so how did you use your local social networks? Obviously, you had a network here that you'd built in I'm going to say Queensland or Australia, but then you went to Silicon Valley, and as we know, on the first instance, maybe you knew the Austrade person, but beyond that, not much. But since then, obviously, you've started to expand that network. But how did you utilize your local network here? I'm going to say even to know that Sandhill Road existed or something. What did you do to get the information you needed to be able to go abroad and start to make connections over there?
I have a really simple saying, and it's kind of like the principle of our startup ecosystem. And some of you might have heard me say it before, it's give before you get. And that concept, like, I literally walk into every meeting with, how can I help? And often my team up there will go, not another event. He's just promised to do another event for someone, because that's my way of being able to help, right? But I literally will walk into every conversation with a how can I help? Who can I help connect this person to? Who can I help introduce them to? I don't walk into any meeting thinking about what can I get. And so that mindset, that's actually the mindset of an entrepreneur, right? The mindset of an entrepreneur is, if you think about it, if you ask, how can I help? That identifies a problem you can solve. Sometimes you can solve that problem by building a business. Sometimes you can solve that problem by building a relationship. Yeah. And so I think that's why it's the single most important value of our ecosystem. If I can get more people walking into every conversation going, how can I help? I'm ultimately going to create more opportunities for people to identify and solve more problems, which are going to build more businesses. So how did I use that to get to Silicon Valley? Back then I didn't, because really there was no one here I could ask. So I just jumped. Well, actually, it's not true, Joy, you're right. I did get an introduction to the guy at Austrade, right? And so I got an introduction to the guy at Austrade, and from another guy I met who was the Trade and Investment Commissioner for Queensland to North America. So my engineering company, I went to a mining conference in North America the year before as part of a Queensland group, and met the Trade and Investment Commissioner. And then when I decided to set up my software company, I went back to him and said, hey, who do you know? And he made an introduction to that guy. And that guy then said, what, you don't know what a term sheet, what a pitch deck is. So he said, go and meet this guy. And so he introduced me to another Aussie. And in the US, the expat community is really, really strong. So I just leveraged the expat community to build my relationships. And it's amazing what the expat community will do for you if you ask. So today, I won't enter a new country without talking to Trade and Investment Queensland, Austrade, and then I'll purposely go and look out, try and find the expat community in that place.
Cool. It's interesting when we stop and think, it's like, oh, actually, I did talk to someone like we think, and that informal network that we have in our lives happens. And you mentioned in the army you didn't want to be in the boys club on base anymore. If you lived in Toowoomba for a while, you may acknowledge that there's a substantial boys club here. We want there to be an awesome girls club too, just saying, but we have to work hard on it, because it hasn't come as naturally for women to talk about business in the social sphere as what it is for men.
Yeah, of course.
And that's something we're trying to change. So just keep that in your mind as well. Awesome. Thank you. Lisa, I've written here that I think you're the queen of collaborations. So I don't know anyone who collaborates as much as you do, but how do you decide who to approach when you want to work together on something? And what do you actually do to start that conversation, to kick it off with someone as a potential collaborative partner?
I am unfortunately cursed with ideas all the time in my head. So anytime I meet a new person or I attend an event like this and I'm speaking to someone, I will literally get ideas of how on earth I could work with them in a collaborative sense. Obviously, it's a blessing as well, but sometimes it is a curse because I do too many things sometimes. But with the collaborations that I've had in the past, obviously being a part of a community like Canvas Co-working, there's no way I would have been able to start my business initially without the support and the network of Canvas Co-working. So being around people, you're constantly meeting new people, finding out what their needs are, how you can help them. Like Wayne was saying, you're just naturally asking, how can I help? So for some of the collaborations that I have had, it will start with generally an idea, and then I know that I can't do things on my own anymore. I used to do lots of things on my own, and I was good at it, but it wasn't as fun as when you're with someone. So when I have an idea, I now start to think, who do I know in my network or in my community that I can reach out with who has those complementary skills? And it's always someone who, like, I have a skill set and I know I don't have all the skill sets I need. So it will always be someone who can complement me in those skill sets. So for example, the Eat Digital collaboration. So Nuri, Susanna and I like to look at the three of us women. We're completely different in our skill sets, in our personality, how we communicate with people, our different value sets, the networks that we hang out with. And the way that that collaboration started was I had an idea where I wanted to do a workshop, and it was a workshop around search engine optimization. So helping people learn how to get found on Google search engines, so helping your website get found more easily. And I was like, you know what, I could do it by myself, but I want to find someone who's really good at search engine optimization. And when you think of search engine optimization in Toowoomba, you think Susanna Birch. She's an amazing blog writer. She really understands that. If she's one of those people that she's so competitive, if she doesn't know something, she goes out and learns it until she's the best at it. So I knew she was really good at SEO. So I knew that together we would do a really amazing workshop. And the benefit of collaborating with someone is that they're also going to bring their network to that workshop as well. So I can market. So from a marketing point of view, I'm reaching 2 different networks as well. So we started planning this workshop, and Nuri got wind of it and was like, oh, I'd really love to work with with Susanna and Lisa. So she reached out to us and said, oh, I'd really love to be a part of that workshop with you. And Nuri and I had known each other, but we'd never really worked together before. And I knew that she was powerful at social media and creating content that goes viral. And her network was huge because she was in collaboration with Brendan. So I knew, oh my gosh, this is a massive network. I could reach all of her network as well for marketing purposes. And I knew that Nuri and Susanna are both uniquely individual characters in their own right. And I really respect unique individual characters. People who are a little bit more quirky and out there and have their own brand, like they have their own brand and identity. So I knew that that would work really well. So we joined forces and we actually made a workshop called the Big Day Digital. So it was 6 hours of content covering website, SEO, social media, all digital marketing. So it ended up being this massive event. And that was just from that simple idea and really thinking about who I could collaborate with in the community. But ultimately it comes down to, you really do have to step out and be a part of the community and start to get to know people before you can make those collaborations. Because initially when I started business, I would never have been able to make those collaborations because I didn't know the people yet. So it's about building those relationships.
Awesome. Thank you. Great explanation. I love hearing people's stories, like retrospectively, even though I've like watched the entire journey and feel like I know it inside out, but it's not my journey. So thank you. Kat, I know as well for you that you encourage other people a lot, but in particular encourage other people to ask for what they need. So I just want you to sort of share, how do you actually do that? So if someone's sort of maybe coming to you and whispering, oh, I need something, and you then go, well, go get it, like go ask, how do you encourage that person to get the confidence to actually go do what they need to do? Does that question make sense? Yeah. Cool.
So many times businesses come to me and they go, I just want to sell more stuff. And you go, okay, do you have a website? No. Have you got your logo yet? No. You go, okay, right. Well, before I even start taking a photo for you, there's no point. Let's get you connected with this person. Let's get you connected with that person. Let's get you here. What else do you need? Because there's no point them coming to me. I can take their money, I can take their photos, but that's not what they need. So just taking the time to listen to their story about why they're being here, why they're there in the first place, what are they hoping to achieve, what's their goal in the end, like what's their big dream, and actually putting in showing them the possibilities, because sometimes they actually don't even know the possibilities are there. They go, so similar to Lisa, I listen to people and they go, oh, imagine if we did this, and imagine, and if you could do that. And sometimes you have to hold back because then they can get overwhelmed with all the ideas, and they go, we've got so much potential and I'm going to be part of your A team and let's get you here. So sometimes it's about harnessing my energy, but also giving them some of that energy so that lifts them up to make them feel as though I can do this. Oh my, well, what my dream's going to be, come to fruition. And then it's about saying, well, if you just go over to, to Lisa and have a chat about the website. She can help you, talk you through this. So it gives them the confidence that they're not on their own. Like in small business, when you're starting out or anything, it feels so damn scary. Like, I don't know how to do this and I don't know how to do this, but I want to get here. And so the overwhelm can sometimes stop us. So when we actually allow people to see that there's a community around them that to help them get to their potential, I think that's a huge key. And just sometimes giving them the words. Like, even I've got a friend that struggles in a certain area and she couldn't get a message out, and without her knowing, she's a friend, so it's okay, I put on Otter. It's a recording app. If you don't know about it, it's a life changer. It's amazing. I just asked her a few questions. I said, tell me about this and tell me why that's so important to you and tell me this and how, and all these open questions. And she just verbal diarrhea, her beautiful passion. And I said to this girl, I said, there it is. You have just said everything that you need to be able to communicate to your audience, to your ideal client. You already know it. It's in there. That's how you communicate. So sometimes it's about showing them that they have what they already need and just giving them the confidence to go, this is just the next step. Just do this one step. Don't worry about all the 20,000 steps in front of you that you have to get to. Just do this first one. And then when you've done that, then we'll get to the next one. And we're all there to help them get there. And I think that's a big step.
Awesome. Thank you. And otter.io if you're looking for it. Great tool. Otter.io. Yeah, it is a good one. Brendan, another thing that I know you do, so you organise great events and in nice places with nice coffee, but you also make people climb mountains. Why? Why do you do that?
I don't actually know why I started doing it, but I must be 2 years ago now. I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I thought, it'd be kind of cool to climb tabletop in the dark by myself. So I did, and it's a magical place. Like, you can climb it during the day, you get one experience. But I've taken about nearly 100 people up there now, and leaving in the dark and climbing for about half an hour in the dark, in a fairly risky sort of environment if you don't know where you're going. To be able to sit on the top of tabletop in the dark and look out over the Lockyer Valley is a pretty impressive sort of thing. And I think to a certain degree it was good for exercise, but it was a very good mind clearing thing. Like, it's a very peaceful place. And I live in middle of Toowoomba, and from there, from my house to the bottom, it's 10 minutes. From the bottom to the top, it's 20 minutes if I'm dawdling around, depending on who I'm taking. Sometimes it's 30 minutes. But
Yeah.
no, and like normally an hour and a half round trip, and sitting at the top there, and you just have some good conversations with people walking up and walking down it. So I sort of found it more as a relaxing thing, but it's great for me to drag people up there, and a lot of people are too scared to go up in the dark, so it's good to give them some confidence to go up there in the dark, and that's just my little thing.
And I imagine the time that you have with that person, and as you said, the conversations wouldn't just be about, how's your SEO going? Like, it's...
Oh, I mean, the interesting thing is that when people are, when you sort of one-on-one, or, we've taken up to 5 or 6 people at a time, but, there's all these conversations, and, even one of Wayne's friends I take up there, and, we'll have this conversation about what are you doing this week? And he'll drop 50 products that he's playing with, or 50 different ideas. And you get that opportunity to say, oh, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about that? But also too, you walk away and you go, that's an interesting product. Let me go and have a look at it for myself, for my own business. So, I'm on the very big belief that you put people in the same room for long enough, they're going to be able to cross-pollinate their ideas, cross-pollinate their opportunities, and cross-pollinate their networks. But, the opportunities are generally a byproduct of, the visibility that they create as a group. So,
yeah, Cool. And I think taking people out of their comfort zone, out of that room, and giving them some space, literally, and something else to be thinking, like thinking, okay, I have to put one foot in front of the other. I have to not fall off the edge of this mountain.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep talking to you while I'm doing that. But I think it opens our minds a little bit more. And as you know, Wayne and I said at the beginning, we'd met beforehand, but we caught up, in the Whitsundays kayaking and chatting on the top of a hill and stuff like that. Your freedom comes with that not having four walls around you, I think, as well.
Different conversations.
Different conversations. That's right. But they still may be business related. There might be some business conversation in there, but you learn more about the person as well, which is nice because we are human, apparently.
Yes, yeah, apparently.
So like on that, there's this saying that emotion follows motion, right? Emotion follows motion. And if you want better emotion, you've got to do better motion, right? And the endorphins start flowing as soon as you start exercising or moving, and the blood circulating to your brain unlocks the thinking part. And often you see that solution to the problem, or you see the next step in the journey, or you remember that person's name, or you come up with that approach that you needed to get to that you couldn't get to sitting at your desk when you were cluttered, right? And so that whole concept of doing that with other people is so powerful, right? Like I do it too, right? I go, whether it's adventure motorbike riding or trail running or whatever, trying to get out and do stuff is such a powerful part of unlocking our performance and also keeping us grounded.
Definitely. Brendan, I'm curious, the first time you took someone else, did you ask them or did they ask you?
The interesting part was I posted it on social media the day that I did it. Me going up in the dark and being the summit and taking a photo of it. And then I had like 20 people reach out to me and say, hey, can I come with you next time? And then it just became this, okay, look, I'm going every Thursday morning at 4 or 5 o'clock, depending on where the sun is. And it just became this, it just exploded. And that's sort of how it all.
Are you going this Thursday?
I can.
Who's going with Brendan this Thursday?
That's tomorrow, by the way.
Come on, he's going.
I'll pretty much go as long as it's not raining. Raining is the only time that's sort of like you.
Raining calls in emergency services.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
It's outside of rain, it's climbable. But Shane might also argue with me that there was one morning that it was so windy that we were having trouble just trying to stay on the edge.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't
Pick
expect
your
it
day.
for Toowoomba, but yeah.
No, cool. Very good. Lisa, another question for you. So I see you blend business and friendships quite a bit along the way. So how do you set boundaries and handle the situation when things maybe don't work out on one side or the other?
Yeah, so I really struggle with normal friendships. Like I'm not a girly girl that goes shopping and I don't do those sorts of things. I actually really enjoy business and ideas so much that sort of occupies my existence. So I just generally find people who are the same and I create friendships around that. So then we can talk about business and ideas and innovation and whatever. And that's sort of how the friendships revolve because I don't really have other friends like normal people do, I guess. And I've always been one of
pretty normal to me.
okay, that's good.
Me too.
And I've always been one of those people where I always say, I want to get a big, massive mansion and just invite everyone to live there with me, and we just sort of all work and live in. That's why I love co-working spaces so much. This is like my mansion that I live and work in.
Very good.
But how do I manage boundaries with people that I do business and friendship with? So I'm really good at setting boundaries for my clients and myself with work. So I will definitely have good friendships with clients of mine, but we won't necessarily go and hang out too much outside of my client relationships. So generally my better friendships are with people who aren't my clients per se, if that makes sense. I love my clients, and I do have lots of friends as clients. And how do I set boundaries? Oh gosh, maybe I'm just too nice and I don't have issues with people.
So
I was
I
trying to
guess
figure out that
I'll
one.
put an example to you. So if you've got someone and they're kind of like, looking at maybe doing a workshop with you or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they say, but I really need help with this SEO thing on my site. Can
know what I
you
do?
can
I
you
go-
fix that for
I
me?
go sign up to the $44 program with the federal government, and I can absolutely help you out. So yeah, absolutely. So and yes, I hang out with people and they always ask me questions. I'm happy to talk about stuff though when we're hanging out, for sure. Like if they need help with something, but I won't sit down and do it for them. That's when they will have to book in, and I'm very clear. If someone asks me, can you build a website for me, and they're a friend of mine, I'll say, yeah, absolutely. And I'll send you the quote and the project proposal. Do you know what I mean? So it's just it's just something I've gotten used to, because obviously when I started out, I was like, yes, I can do that for like $20. Yes, I can do that for like $50. But yes, over the years, obviously I learned those boundaries. And
Yeah, I didn't ask early enough. I should have got you to build my
Yeah,
website before you put your boundaries in
Joy's
place.
the reason, because Joy always taught me to value my time, and time is money. So, you were the reason.
I know. I just taught you that too soon. I should have got you to build my website first. Oh, good. No, I'm kidding. Awesome. That's good. But yes, I see that has developed,
Yeah.
which is why I asked you that question. So wonderful. All right. Now I've got one last question written on my list, but then I know some of you are thinking questions. So start forming those in your head while you listen to this last answer, and then we're going to throw it open to you. So Wayne, I want to know how you see the role of the chief entrepreneur influencing how entrepreneurs in Queensland actually build and leverage their social capital. So what's the value of the network, and how does the chief entrepreneur encourage that?
I come here and I encourage you to do that because it's good.
I think you do more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, seriously, my role is to inspire people to take action as an entrepreneur. And so I hope I do that by coming here. Practically speaking, we also have a whole bunch of programs and activities that we're putting on that will help you to build your network. We work really closely with the Advanced Queensland program to help them think about and focus on what are the funding programs that will provide opportunities out into the regions to do activities. We sponsor heaps of events. So the crew have got, what's the event we're sponsoring? What are the next couple, Sandy?
I don't know, yours just So I'm gonna throw in. So for those of you watching online, you didn't witness the little sort of chat we had prior to starting, but we had a couple of people speak, and the response was, go tell Sandy or go tell Heather your details. Make sure we've got your details, because we want to connect you to other people we know doing stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. So it's looking for that, but then it's saying, you need to take some action. You need to go and make sure we've got your details, because now we know you exist. We
Yeah.
want to be able to connect you. And I think that's something that, as an entrepreneur, an experienced entrepreneur, you get used to going, talking to people and giving them maybe your card or connecting with them on LinkedIn or something like that. But then what do you do? So for those people who were told to go give your details to Heather, what will you do tomorrow? You'll give her the details, but then what? So it's thinking about those next steps as well.
Yeah, as an entrepreneur and as the chief entrepreneur, I am not here to build your business for you. Right? That's not my job. Yeah, it's your job. Right? Because I need lots and lots of entrepreneurs who have really good entrepreneurial muscle. If I do all the fishing for you, that's not helpful. Right? We've got to teach everyone to fish, right? I have a slide that I show at the end of every time I do a presentation to everyone, and it says, don't ask your kids what job they're going to do. Ask your kids what problem they're going to solve and what business they're going to create. All right. We've got to change the conversation as parents and as a community to get everyone in our community. I don't care what background people come from. I want to encourage more people to be curious problem solvers, more people to take ownership of their future, ownership of their opportunity to make a difference, their opportunity to have an impact. And that's so important to me, right? Like our ecosystem, and everyone up here said the same thing, right? Everyone up here has said, hey, they enter every conversation basically looking for ways to help or coming up with amazing ideas or pointing someone in the right direction. Ultimately, you've got to take that step. And I think that's the most important thing, right?
Cool. All right.
There's a
now
question.
We want questions. So, yeah, I'll.
Come on.
Yeah, for the people online.
What's your name?
My name's Chantel Shaw. I own Diva Creative, which is a graphic design and photography business, and I'm currently undergoing a degree in marketing and public relations to add to my business. What I want to know from you, Wayne, is over the years of my life, I have grown successful at something and had some major league detractors who've knocked me off my poppy stand, so
Yeah.
to speak. And it's taken me time over the years to pull myself out of where I got pushed to. Well, they pushed me a little and I fell.
Yeah.
Have you in your journey had these detractors and like, how did you handle it? What did you do to overcome it? What did you do to get past it? Did you have a time where you got knocked off and you got back up? Like those kind of stories. Do you have any helpful stories that could help us when we get, because Australia has a terrible tall poppy syndrome. Like people just love to knock us off our pedestals, especially, and I hate to say it, Toowoomba, but it does happen here.
When did it happen to you, Wayne? What did you do?
Yeah, Chantel, it's a great question. And it's a question that every single one of us will face, whether it's in business or in life more generally, right? I do a couple of things. First thing is I don't watch the news, right? I minimize the amount of negative stuff that I ingest so that I'm not in a negative place, right? There's one of the things you get taught as an army officer is there are things you can control and there are things you can't. Don't focus on the things you can't, focus on the things you can. So I don't invest energy in things I can't control. That's a really important aspect for me. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Whether I listen to it or not, that's my choice, yeah? And what I do with it is also my choice. So I've got a bunch of examples for you, and this is being recorded. And so I'm going to try and share these in a way that doesn't disrespect anyone, right? As you go through your journey, you have lots of stakeholders. And as recently as last week, right? I have stakeholders that have a different set of experiences, a different set of skills, a different mindset, and a different perception on how things should be done. And sometimes those stakeholders will absolutely express themselves. They will share their perspectives and opinions. And they will share them in a way that works for them and not necessarily take the time to think about how it impacts me, for example, or you know what I mean? I just put one foot in front of the other. Like I've learned over time to literally go, okay, well, what am I going to do next? Right? What am I going to do next? So I have a saying, I have lots of sayings. It's the way I run my life and I run my business. I keep things really simple. Yeah. And so for me, what I just think about, okay, what am I going to do next? Right. And literally my thing is, I have this saying that is, it isn't good, it isn't bad, it just is. So whatever, it is where it is, right? It just is that place. Yeah. Where do I want to go? How do I get there? And so I just consciously focus myself on that. Whatever they said, it isn't good, it isn't bad, it just is, right? So I just set myself up with radio. Yes, you've got an opinion or a perspective, right? That is what it is, right? Where do I want to go? And I literally go, what's my goal? What's my target? What have I got to do next? What's the outcome I've got to achieve? How am I going to get there? And so I actually don't let that stuff, like I don't take it on board. I focus on what are the next steps I've got to do to move forward. Now, that does not mean that I don't suffer imposter syndrome, right? That does not mean that I don't let negative thoughts and feedback, wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? I have more sleepless nights than I desire. And, I've just gone through a capital raising process. It is an incredibly challenging process to raise, $16 million, right? And lots of people want to have an perspective on all of the different parts of that process. Existing shareholders, new shareholders, board members, staff, observers. That's a really, really challenging process. I've gone through 5 capital raising processes. I've learned a lot of lessons on how to deal with that stuff. I have external shareholders. I have some of the most influential companies and people in Australia on my board, right? These people are incredibly experienced, incredibly competent, incredibly capable, and they have experiences and they invest in other companies and they look across their other companies and go, oh, well, that works, you should do that. And I'm like, well, hang on, Orange, Apple, right? Yeah. And then I have to kind of go, well, don't take that to heart, Wayne, think it through practically. What's the message they're trying to give me? Because actually they have the same outcome as me. They want the business to be successful. They just maybe don't have all the detail, right? And so there's, Chantal, all I can say is that every single one of us, right, as an entrepreneur, as a parent, as a person, as a friend, needs to build resilience. And we need to do that consciously, right? You've got to consciously build resilience. And going up the tabletop at 4 o'clock in the morning is actually a really great way. It's a really simple thing you can do. It's another little tool in your kit bag that will help you build resilience, right? Whatever it is, there are hundreds of things, but be conscious about building resilience, like consciously choosing to. I've had, and Joy knows this, right? Like I have had 5 or 6 near-death experiences in my business where literally I couldn't afford to pay payroll. And, I called my wife one day from the US. I was at a conference in the US. I used all my money to pay to go to the conference, right? The conference included food, thankfully, right? I couldn't afford to go. The last day of the conference included a 3 days skiing, snow skiing. I couldn't afford to hire the gear, right? I could only afford the meals that didn't include, I could only really afford to go and buy Macca's. I couldn't afford to eat in the restaurants where the conference was. Called my wife, said, honey, I'm so sorry. We're going to lose everything. We're going to lose our house. We're going to lose everything. It literally got to the point where on more than one occasion, I have not known how I was going to get through, and I got through. And I built a little bit of resilience from that. And then the next time I built a little bit more resilience, and the next time I built a bit more resilience. And when I was doing the capital raising just recently, and promise you won't tell anyone in this, right? Keep this in-house, right? Like literally, you raise capital as a tech company because you're burning money, right? You're not yet cash flow positive. We're investing. And so my capital in the bank was running out. Now, when you've got 80 people in your team, right, and most of them have got families, there's a couple of hundred people that are depending on you. And you're like, I've got to make this work, right? The stress and pressure of that is really, really high. And yet this most recent time, like I just knew I'd make it work, right? Because I'd done it so many times. I built resilience. I worked out how to get through that process, that I was still making recruiting decisions 3 weeks before the capital was due in the bank, even though that we were like pretty close to like no money, right? Now, not seriously scary, but close enough that most other people would not be making those kind of decisions, right? So build the muscle of resilience. I hope that helps.
Other questions, Edmund?
This is a question for Wayne. I'm Edmund Cole from ACO Australia. So actually, it's not so much for Wayne, it's more for the chief entrepreneur of Queensland.
Right.
Queensland doesn't, the reason why you had to go to Sandy Hill Road, which is just off El Camino, is because you can't raise the capital in Queensland. So what are you of Queensland doing. I mean, we don't have 500 startups. We don't have that guy called Sam from Y Combinator. No one in this room, apart from me, really knows how to read a term sheet. Most people don't know how to structure their company. A lot of people around in Toowoomba, they don't have proprietary limited, so you can't sell equity for capital.
Can't be a sole trader.
Is there anything that can be done on the capital side? And then the next question would be on the 457 visa. So if you need to import talent, what's being done in that respect?
What's your name?
Edmund.
Edmund, great questions, Edmund. Like really, really important structural questions for the development of our economy, right? So creating a market where we have investors ready to invest in Queensland companies is really, really important. And there is so much capital sitting here in Queensland. There's stacks of money in Queensland. What we've got to do is unlock it and be able to effectively point it at this kind of investment. Early stage businesses are a particular type of investment and they have a particular type of risk profile. And so we've got to be able to get the funds that are available, at least some of them allocated to this kind of risk profile. I hosted an event in, I think.
Specifically about seed, how about non-seed, like the
Yeah, in my mind, anything that's friends, families, seed, and venture up to PE, right? So that kind of category, seed through to Series B, C, right? That what we're doing, I hosted an event last year where I had almost $1 trillion sitting around the table. Local investors. They were the big super funds, the couple of family offices and venture funds that we have here in Queensland, and representatives of other venture funds that we're going to, that are focused on investing here, right? So going to set up an office, I've got one, maybe, well, one already has, right? And so we're trying to get to work with those people to make sure they're aware of what's available here in Queensland. Deal flow is the term they use, right? So that they can build a pipeline of investment. And we're also trying to help the super funds who have particular mandates and particular operating constraints. We're trying to help them be able to invest locally. At a government level, we're setting up we're calling it a capital pathway. And we've got a program that we're working on to fund a capital pathway. As you know, the Queensland government used to do Ignite Ideas. That's just finished. We're looking at the next version of that. They used to do the Business Development Fund. We're looking at how do we recommence that. They currently have the Business Investment Fund for later stage companies, Series B, C companies. There's about 100 million and they've deployed about 40, I think. So we're going to join all those things up to try and create a more focused capital pathway. Does that kind of...
So it's going to be a full roadmap.
Yeah.
So friends and schools.
Yeah.
But then that's only the capital aspect.
Yep.
That's only people in the finance world trying to invest in the companies. What about teaching the entrepreneurs? Okay, this is your seed or your pre-seed. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to structure your company for. If you're going to get a term sheet, this is what you need to look out for. Look out for these clauses because they apply to you. These clauses don't apply to you.
Edmund,
You can buy a bunch of boys to tell you this, but
I think you should run an event here where you tell people that.
Well, Campus Co-working does have like Ask an Expert. So they have like IP and legal, you know, you can come down and sit down and actually work that out with them here at Campus Co-working. Like we run events all the time here at Campus Co-working to help startups understand that. So
And
you can definitely find that out here at the space.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why Joint Dev set up the space so you can get access. to
And
it.
seriously, if you're like, you seriously sound like you know what you're doing, would you be willing to have coffee with some people if they wanted to know that, or run a session on it?
Edmund
Yeah.
loves coffee. He's always taking me back for coffee.
Yeah. So maybe that's a really good next step from here, right? Right, like run a session on it here. We've been running BDO. We're running a founders founders course that was done last year down in Brisbane. There are some different founders activities that are doing that have been funded, right? So I encourage you guys to do more of that, right? Sometimes we've got to share this stuff collaboratively. And then on your 457 question, it's a great question. How do you get access to really skilled people from overseas that can complement, or fill the gaps in your workforce here? There's a lot of focus on the talent and skills shortage. The Queensland government ran a skills summit about 3 weeks ago. The Premier ran it, right? And they are really focused on what are we going to do to solve the skills shortage. There's a specific task force in the Prime Minister's office, probably not doing very much now that he's called an election. But the fact that they have a task force they're focused on it means that it is a priority topic. So there are activities happening to really help companies like ours get access to international talent. And I think, it is a federal responsibility, the visa thing. We are advocating very, very strongly for it. Trade and Investment Queensland they're running a seriously large program on it, and they're leading Queensland government on it at the moment.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for coming along. And I know there's some more questions, but perhaps afterward you might be able to grab one if he doesn't have to run away, or definitely our other panelists, and ask those questions in the stages afterward. But I just want to say thank you everybody for joining us on stage today, and for the questions that we had, and everyone who joined us online as well. Thank you very much. And I hope you all learned something from that. Obviously, I want you to think about who is it that you know, and how can you utilize that network that you have already built, and how can you expand that, but how can you also encourage other people to utilize their networks to their own advantage as well, and actually leverage that. So together as a community, we're stronger and more robust, more resilient, and also, well connected in a way that we feel comfortable actually utilizing those connections for the benefit of the whole community. So have a think about that as well.
I have two things.
You have two things. Okay, you go ahead, and then we're going to wrap up.
Who are the entrepreneurs in the room? Put your hands up. Right. We have this thing called 222 and 22. It is 222 videos telling the story of Queensland entrepreneurs, innovators, researchers, people involved in the ecosystem. Please do one. It's a way for you to tell the world about your story. We're putting them on our social medias. We're promoting the hell out of it. You can all promote the hell out of it as well, right? So please take the time to record a 222 in 22 video. That's the first thing.
How long does the video go for?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Details are in our newsletter, if you can check it out.
Yeah. So please do them, right? Like, it will help you guys to get comfortable promoting your businesses, which is really, really cool. And we will amplify that for you, right? That's the first one. The second one is chief.entrepreneur@queensland.gov.premiers.queensland.gov.au, right? Something like that, right? Anyway, there's my email address is on the website, right? There's a contact us form on the website. If you want a hand, reach out and ask, right? Joy's got my details, right? Reach out and ask, and the amazing Sarah, Heather, and Sandy will do whatever they can to connect you. And Sarah knows everyone in the ecosystem. So if you don't know Sarah and you want to know everyone in the ecosystem, get to know Sarah, right? She's the ultimate in social capital.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well,
Thanks,
thank you all very much.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
There's more
Definitely.
food. We've got time.